Hello and a peaceful welcome to all. From the go-to-sleep historian, if you find comfort and rest in our historical tales, please consider supporting our sanctuary of sleep by subscribing to the channel. If tonight's story helps you unwind, we'd be so grateful if you'd give the video a like. And in the comments, we'd love to hear your suggestions for future journeys into slumber. Tonight, we present a tranquil tale from a quieter age. The Starlight Librarian. This is a deliberately slow, descriptive story, designed not to excite, but to add a truly boring story, in the best way, for deep and peaceful sleep. Now, let us begin our story for tonight. The video opens on a slow, looping animation of a tranquil, starry night sky. A few gentle, wispy clouds drift past. The scene is dark and calming, lit only by the moon and stars. Soft, ambient music begins, featuring a slow-paced piano melody and subtle, ethereal pads. Hello and welcome. Welcome to this quiet space, a sanctuary from the noise of the day. I'm so glad you've decided to join me here, as we gently prepare to leave the waking world behind and drift into a deep, restorative sleep. Wherever you are, whatever this day has brought you, know that you can set it all down now. There is nothing more you need to do. Nothing more you need to think about. Your only task for this time is simply to be. To rest. To listen. So, let's begin by finding a position of ultimate comfort. If you're sitting, allow yourself to recline. If you're lying down, feel the full support of your bed beneath you, the softness of your pillows. Let your body feel heavy, and allow yourself to sink into this feeling of being completely held and supported. Now, gently bring your awareness to your breath. There's no need to change it. Just notice Italiana, the cool air flowing in, and the slightly warmer air flowing out. In and out. Let this natural rhythm be your anchor. Tonight, I'll be telling you a story called The Starlight Librarian. It's a gentle, medieval tale of a silent library, a forgotten curse, and the quiet magic of companionship. You don't need to follow the plot closely. Let the words wash over you like a soft wave, carrying you into a state of deep relaxation. If your mind wanders, let it wander. If you drift off to sleep, that is a wonderful success. So, let your eyelids grow heavy. Release the tension in your jaw, your shoulders, your hands. Smooth out your forehead. Let your body become still. And whenever you're ready, we'll begin our journey into a peaceful night's sleep. Welcome, traveler of the waking world. Welcome to this quiet hour, this gentle space between the setting sun and the rising dawn. I am your guide on this journey into rest, and I am so deeply glad you have chosen to set down the burdens of your day and join me here. Wherever you are, in whatever corner of the world you listen, know that this is a sanctuary. This is your time. The day, with its clamor and its demands, has now passed. The lists have been run, the fields have been tended, the scrolls have been read. All of that is done now. There's nothing more that needs your attention, nothing more that requires your strength. For this next little while, your only task is to be, to rest, to listen, to listen. So, let us begin by finding a position of profound comfort. If you are sitting, allow yourself to recline. If you are lying down, feel the way your body is fully cradled and supported by the bed beneath you, by the pillows that hold your head. This is your throne of rest, your chamber of peace. There is no need to move, no need to adjust. Simply allow yourself to sink, just a little deeper, into the welcoming embrace of your own bedding. Perhaps you can notice the weight of your body, the heavy, solid weight of your legs and your arms, resting so completely. Feel the gentle pressure of your shoulders against the surface below. There is no need to hold yourself up any longer. You can let go entirely. You are safe. You are supported. You are held. And as you settle into this feeling of safety, of weight, begin to bring a soft, curious attention to your breath. There is no need to change it, no need to force it into any special rhythm. It is perfect, exactly as it is. Simply notice the cool sensation of the air as it flows in through your nose, filling your lungs. And then the warmer, softer sensation as it flows back out. In and out. A gentle, timeless tide within you. You might imagine, with each exhale, that you are releasing a little piece of the day. A small worry, a fine tension, a lingering thought. You are breathing it out, and it dissolves into the quiet air of your room, harmless and gone. And with each new inhale, you are drawing in peace. You are drawing in stillness. You are drawing in the very darkness and quiet of this night, letting it fill you with its calm. We are about to begin a story, a tale not of great battles or fierce dragons, but of a different kind of magic. The magic of silence, the magic of stillness. It is a story set in a time of candlelight and parchment, of stone castles and whispering forests. It is a story designed not to excite, but to sote. Not to engage, but to lull. Your mind does not need to work to follow it. It can simply wander through the scenes we will paint, like a soft breeze moving through an empty hall. So, as we cross the threshold into this tale, you can let your eyes grow heavy if they wish to close. You can release any last bits of tension in your jaw, your forehead, the space between your eyebrows. Smooth it out with the thought of a gentle hand. You are leaving the world of doing and entering the world of being. The story is called The Starlight Librarian, and it begins, as all good stories do, in a place far away and a long, long time ago. Let your breathing be your anchor, the sound of my voice, a gentle boat carrying you down a slow, peaceful river. There is no hurry. There is no destination but rest. Before we journey into the valley of our story, let us take just a few more moments here, on the banks of this quiet river, to settle even more deeply, to arrive fully in this present moment, where the past is a faded dream and the future has not yet been woven. Let your awareness travel down, once more, to your breath, that fightful, steady companion that has been with you your entire life. Notice the gentle rise of your chest or your belly as the air enters, and the soft fall as it leaves. In and out. And now, if it feels comfortable and natural to you, you might experiment with making the out-breaths just a little bit longer than the in-breath. Not by force, never by strain, just by gentle suggestion. Breathe in slowly, to a count you find comfortable. And then, as you breathe out, let the breath extend just a heartbeat longer, releasing a deep and satisfying sigh of relief. It is on this longer exhale that your body's own inner healer, your calming nervous system, is gently activated. It is a signal sent from your mind to every corner of your body that says, all is well. The watchtower is manned. You can stand down. You can rest. So, let us try that together now, in the privacy of your own rest. Breathing in a soft and easy breath, and breathing out a longer, slower, releasing breath. Letting go, as if you are sinking into a warm, deep bath, feeling the water accept every part of you. In and out, longer and slower. And again. In, peace, and out. Release. Very good. You are doing perfectly. There is no right or wrong here. Only the gentle rhythm of your own body, finding its way back to its natural state of calm. Now, as you continue this soft, rhythmic breathing, I invite you to take a mental journey with me, down through your own body. We will sweep away any last fragments of tension, any little pockets of the day that you may still be carrying. Start by bringing your awareness to the tips of your toes. Wiggle them gently if you like, feeling the space between them. And then, as you breathe out, imagine all sensation melting away from them. Let them go completely soft, heavy, and still. A deep, warm relaxation begins to spread from your toes into the arches of your feet, into your heels, your ankles, all the tiny bones and muscles that are letting go, surrendering their duty for the night. Feel this warm, heavy relaxation, slowly, rising up into your calves, your shins, your knees, The powerful muscles that have carried you through the day now can rest. They can become soft and heavy. Let the feeling flow up into your thighs, a deep, satisfying weight settling into them. They are sinking, melting into the bed. Now, let this wave of peace flow into your hips, your pelvis, the very center of your body, releasing, letting go, all holding patterns dissolving. Your lower body now feels like it is made of warm, heavy sand, perfectly molded to the surface beneath you. Let the relaxation rise up into your stomach, your lower back, a place that often holds so much of our unseen burdens. Breathe into that space, and on the exhale, imagine it softening, warming, releasing. Let it go. The warmth and heaviness now fill your chest, your upper back, your shoulders. The shoulders, so often carrying the weight of the world. You can let that weight drop now. Feel it draining down, Hawaii from you through your arms, and out through your fingertips. Your shoulders are not meant to carry burdens right now. Their only job is to rest, to be soft and heavy. Let the feeling travel down your arms, through your elbows, your wrists, into your hands, and each individual finger. They lie still, open and receptive, holding nothing. Finally, let this deep, soothing relaxation flow up into your neck, your jaw, allowing your mouth to fall slightly open. Your tongue rests softly in your mouth. Your eyelids are heavy, so comfortably heavy. The tiny muscles around your eyes relax. The space between your eyebrows smooths out. Your forehead is calm and cool. Even your scalp relaxes, all the way to the very top of your head. From the crown of your head to the tips of your toes, your body is now immersed in a deep, warm, heavy sea of relaxation. You are fully here, fully present, fully at rest. Your breathing is soft and easy. Your heartbeat is calm and steady. This is the ground from which our story will grow. A body at peace, a mind ready to be gently carried away on a dream. In this deep quiet, before we step into our tale, I would like to share a thought with you. A simple truth that I have come to know in my own life, during my own nights of wakefulness. Sleep is not a task to be completed. It is not a fortress to be stormed. I have lain in the darkness myself, watching the moon's path travel across the floor, feeling the hours slip by like thieves, growing more and more anxious with each one. I felt the frustration, the worry about the day to come, the desperate urge to make sleep happen. And what I learned through those long nights is that the more I fought for sleep, the more it eluded me. It was like trying to grasp water in my hands. The tighter I clenched my fists, the less I held. Sleep is a visitor who comes only when it feels welcome. It is shy, like a forest creature. If you chase it, it will flee. But if you create a space of quiet acceptance, if you settle into your rest and release all demand, that is when it will creep in softly, on silent paws, and curl up beside you. So, tonight, we are not chasing sleep. We are not even inviting it. We are simply preparing a space for it. We are making the bed of our mind soft and welcoming. We are lying down in it, and we are letting go of all expectation. If sleep comes, we will welcome it as a dear friend. If it tarries a while longer, we will not be troubled, for we are already at rest. We are already in a state of peace, and that, in itself, is a deep and powerful healing. This story is part of that preparation. It is a soft blanket for your mind. You do not need to follow the plot, or remember the names, or figure anything out. You can let the words wash over you like a gentle rain, soaking into the earth of your consciousness, encouraging dreams to bloom. If your mind wanders, let it wander. If you drift in and out of awareness, let it up in. It is all perfect. It is all part of the process. So, release any last vestige of trying. Let go of the need to listen correctly. There is no correct way. There is only your way. And your way is perfect. Now, the candle flame flickers, and in its light, we begin to see the outlines of a different place. A place where a story awaits. Let us turn our attention there, with soft and easy focus. Our story begins in a place forgotten by most maps. a secret tucked into the folds of the world. It was known to the few shepherds and wanderers who had chanced upon it as the Valley of Stillness, and it earned its name not from any magic spell, but from a peculiar quality of the air itself. It was a place where San went to rest. Here, the wind did not howl. It moved through the ancient pines with a soft, breathy hush, as if not to disturb the slumber of the stones. A bird's song, though clear and sweet, did not echo or ring out sharply. It hung in the air for a moment, a perfect, crystalline note, and then was gently absorbed by the silence, like a drop of dew into moss. If you were to drop a pebble into the river that wound through the valley's heart, you would see the splash, see the ripples spread in perfect concentric circles, but you would hear only the faintest, most delicate plip, a sound so small it seemed to be made of thought alone. It was a place that demanded quiet from the soul. Those with restless hearts found it unnerving and would soon leave, but those who carried a weariness within them, a fatigue from the clamor of life, found it to be a balm. They would sit on the riverbank for hours, feeling the silence seep into their bones, mending fractures they didn't know they had. And in the very heart of this valley, built into the base of the tallest mountain, was a library. It was not a castle of war, with high, defensive walls and arrow slits. Its architecture was one of welcome and wonder, though a welcome that had not been accepted in a very long time. It was made of pale gray stone, quarried from the mountain itself, and dark, aged timber from the valley's forests. Its roof was steeply pitched, clad in mossy tiles, and from its many chimneys, no smoke rose. Its windows were tall and arched, filled not with clear glass, but with panes of polished crystal and, some whispered, even thin sheets of alabaster, designed to soften the outside light into a perpetual, golden-hour glow. A great, arched doorway, made of iron-bound oak that had silvered with age, stood at the top of a wide, shallow staircase. Carved into the stone arch above the door was a constellation of stars surrounding a single, open book. This was the Astral Library, a repository for knowledge both mundane and magical, collected over 1,000 years. It was said that within its halls you could find a forgotten lullaby from a lost kingdom, the recipe for a star metal alloy, and the diary of a queen who could speak with swans. But for many years, the great door had remained shut. The paths leading to it, once well trodden by scholars and seekers, were now overgrown with wild thyme and soft, creeping moss. The library slept, and its keeper slept within it, a prisoner not of locks and bars, but of a silence far deeper than that of the valley itself. For inside those walls, the silence was not peaceful. It was absolute. The librarian's quiet curse de visual dissolves to the interior of the library. It is a vast, circular room. Bookshelves soar upwards into shadowy heights. Ladders on rails stand silent. A large, cold fireplace of dark stone dominates one wall. Dust motes hang motionless in the air, caught in beams of light that pour from high windows. Everything is beautiful, but utterly frozen and silent. Inside the Astral Library, the world was held in a state of suspended animation. This was not the natural, peaceful quiet of the valley outside. This was a silence that had been wise for, and like many wishes made with a selfish heart, it had been granted in a way that became a punishment. The librarian's name was Elion. Once, he had been a man of great renown, a prodigy sought after by kings and wizards for his knowledge of the celestial arts. He could chart the paths of comets, read the future in the alignment of planets, and his voice was said to be so melodious he could recite poetry that would make nightingales fall silent to listen. But Elion was proud. He was arrogant. He believed his work was the most important in the world, and he grew to resent any sound that pulled his attention from his scrolls and star charts. The chatter of other scholars in the library grated on him. The crackle of the fire was a distraction. The very turning of a parchment page sounded to him like a thunderclap. His desire for perfect quiet became an obsession. He tried earplugs of wax and wool. He commanded silence from all who entered. But it was never enough. There was always a breath, a heartbeat, the rustle of a mouse in the walls. In his desperation, he turned to a deeper magic. He ventured into the heart of the library, to a section sealed with silver chains, and he unrolled a forbidden scroll. It spoke of a spell, a ward of perfect silence, that could be woven around a person or a place. The scroll carried a warning, etched in blood-red ink. To sever one's self from the song of the world is to sever the soul from its anchor. Blinded by his obsession, Elian ignored it. He performed the ritual on the night of a new moon, in the library's central chamber. He spoke the words, burned the herbs, and felt the magic take hold. It began at the edges of the library grounds, a bubble of stillness that grew inward. The crickets outside the walls fell silent. The wind ceased its sighing against the windows. The last sound he heard from the outside world was the distant hoot of an owl, which was cut off, as if by a knife. Then, the silence turned on him. He opened his mouth to speak a word of triumph, and heard nothing. He clapped his hands together before his face, and saw the motion, felt the impact, but the sound died the moment it was born. He stumbled to a bell and rang it frantically, watching the clapper strike the bronze, producing not even a whisper of vibration. The spell had worked too well. It had not created quiet. It had devoured sound itself. It had made him and his library a void. At first, he was relieved. The perfect working conditions he had craved were his. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into years, the relief curdled into a loneliness so profound it was a physical ache. He was the curator of 1,000,000 stories, 1,000,000,000 words, and he could not hear a single one of them. He was the master of a castle of knowledge, and he lived in a tomb. His own voice, once so famed, was now a forgotten instrument. He could feel the vibrations in his throat when he tried to speak, but the silence that answered was a mockery. He became a ghost in his own home. His world was one of sensation alone. The sight of dust dancing in sunbeams, the feel of vellum beneath his fingertips, the taste of the simple food he prepared. But the fifth sense, the sense that connects us to the living world, was gone. He was adrift in a sea of silence, and the shore was nowhere in sight. The man who had wished away the world's noise was now dying for the lack of it. He was the Starlight Librarian, the keeper of a silent symphony, and he was the only one who could not hear the music. The camera focuses on a figure, Elian sitting at a large desk. He is not old, but his face is etched with a deep, timeless sorrow. He reaches out and turns the page of a large book. The movement is graceful, but the expected rustle is absent. The visual holds on this silent, poignant scene. Luna arrives. The visual shifts to the exterior of the library. It is a bright morning. A young woman, Luna, approaches on foot. She is dressed in practical, travel-worn clothes of simple wool and linen. A satchel is slung over her shoulder. She moves not with weariness, but with a deliberate, calm purpose. She pauses at the bottom of the staircase, looking up at the grand, silent door. The woman who approached the library on this particular morning was named Luna. She had not come seeking celestial secrets or forgotten magic. She had come seeking work, and though she did not fully admit it to herself, she had come seeking quiet. Luna was a restorer. Her craft was in the mending of things that time had worn thin. Tapestries with faded threads, ceramics with hairline cracks, and most of all, books. She had a reverence for the written word, but a discomfort with the spoken one. In the towns and cities where she had plied her trade, she found the noise to be a constant assault, the clatter of carts on cobblestones, the shouted arguments from market stalls, the incessant, buzzing chatter of people. It wearied her soul in a way that hard labor never could. She had seen a notice, yellowed with age, pinned to the board of a forgotten inn at the valley's edge. It was written in a beautiful, flowing script. Seeker of quiet hands and a quieter heart, it began. The astral library requires a keeper of its physical forms, a restorer of pages, a mender of bindings. Solitude is assured. Compensation is knowledge. It was signed simply, the librarian. For others, the word solitude is assured might have been a warning. For Luna, they were a siren's call. She had followed the overgrown path into the valley of stillness, and with each step, she felt the tangled knots within her begin to loosen. The hushed wind, the muted birdsong, it was not eerie to her. It was a symphony of peace. Now, she stood before the great door. She placed a hand on the cool, silvered wood, feeling the intricate carvings of stars and constellations beneath her palm. There was no knocker, No bell. It seemed a door that was not meant to be opened by visitors. Taking a deep breath of the quiet, fragrant air, she leaned her shoulder gently against the wood and pushed. To her surprise, it was not locked. It swung inward without a sound, its massive hinges moving seamlessly. She stepped across the threshold, and the outside world seemed to fold away behind her. She was standing in the grand foyer she had seen from outside, but the reality of it was far more immense. The air was cool and carried the scent of old paper, dried lavender, and beeswax. Light fell in great, soft pillars from the high windows, illuminating the floating dust, which here, too, hung perfectly still, as if time itself was holding its breath. And then she saw him. At the far end of the hall, a man stood from behind a large desk. He was tall and slender, dressed in robes of a dark, simple cloth. His hair was the color of ash, and his face was pale and fine-featured, but his eyes were the color of a twilight sky, and they held a depth of loneliness that made Luna's breath catch in her throat. He did not look fearsome. He looked lost. He looked at her, and his expression was one of shock, then confusion, and then a flicker of something that might have been hope, so long buried he barely recognized it himself. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. Instead, he simply stared, a silent question in his gaze. Luna, feeling the profound stillness of the place, did not speak either. She felt that a spoken word here would be a violation, like shouting in a sacred temple. Instead, she bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect, and then reached into her satchel. She pulled out the old notice, now slightly crumpled from her journey, and held it out towards him. They understood. He nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. He then gestured with a long-fingered hand for her to come further in. And so, without a single word being spoken, their silent partnership began. The visual shows Luna taking a tentative step forward, the notice in her hand. Elian watches her, his posture a mixture of caution and profound, aching curiosity. The scene holds on this first, wordless meeting. The first day in silence, the visual follows Luna as she is given a silent tour of the library's main areas. We see the scriptorium with its high desks, the map room with sprawling parchment scrolls, and the main reading room. Everything is beautiful, clean, but frozen in a deep, soundless stasis. Narrator, Alian, the Starlight Librarian, became Luna's silent guide. He moved through the vast halls with a ghost's grace, his soft-soled boots making no noise on the polished stone floors. He would point to a section of shelves, then to Luna, and then make a gentle, turning motion with his hand. Luna understood. This was to be her domain. These were the books that needed her care. Her first task was in a section devoted to medieval bestiaries books filled with illustrations of real and mythical creatures. The volumes were magnificent, bound in worn leather and clasped with tarnished silver, but time had been unkind to their bindings. Spines were cracked, pages were loose, and the delicate ink of the illustrations was flaking away. Luna set up a small work table near one of the great windows, where the light was best. She unpacked her tools from her satchel, her bone folder, her delicate brushes, her pots of specially mixed adhesive, her spools of linen thread. As si vorked, the silence wrapped around her like a cloak. It was a different silence than she had ever known. In the outside world, silence was merely an absence of noise, a pause waiting to be filled. Here, the silence was a presence. It was a tangible thing, thick and heavy. It should have been oppressive, but to Luna, it felt focused. She found that, without the distraction of sound, her other senses sharpened. The feel of the parchment beneath her fingers became a language. She could sense its age, its fragility, its unique texture. She could see the individual hairs in the vellum, the subtle variations in the color of the ink, the scent of the old paper, the beeswax from the candles, a leon lit as the afternoon wore on, the faint, clean smell of the stoneit, all combined into a perfume of antiquity and peace. She lost all track of time. There was no bell to mark the hours, no call to meals. Her world shrank to the page in front of her, the gentle motion of her hands, the play of light across the illuminated letter of a griffin or a unicorn. She would occasionally look up to find Elian watching her from a distance. His expression unreadable. He would never approach, but would simply observe her process, as if fascinated by the very act of creation and repair. Once, while mending a particularly delicate page that showed a golden phoenix rising from flames, a tiny flake of gold leaf came loose. Without thinking, Luna let out a soft, frustrated breath, a mere exhalation of air. It was not a word, not even a sigh, just a faint huh of effort. In the absolute silence of the library, it was like a thunderclap. Elian, who was across the room, flinched as if struck. His head snapped up, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and something else. Something like yearning. He stared at her, and for a terrifying moment, Luna thought she had broken some sacred rule. She froze, her brush poised in midair. But then, something remarkable happened. The corner of Elian's mouth twitched. It was not quite a smile, but it was an expression that softened the deep lines of sorrow on his face. He gave her a slow, deliberate nod. It was an acknowledgement, an acceptance. It seemed to say, "I heard that, and it is... oh, all right." The moment passed. He returned to his scroll, and she to her phoenix. But the atmosphere in the library had shifted, imperceptibly. A crack had appeared in the wall of silence. It was a tiny crack, no bigger than the flake of gold leaf she had been trying to save. But it was there. As the daylight began to fade, Elian appeared at her side. He placed a hand on the table, and when she looked up, he pointed towards the back of the library, then mimed eating. Luna nodded. He led her to a small, simple kitchen she had not seen, where a pot of stew simmered silently over a hearth. He served 2 bowls and gestured for her to sit. They ate their first meal together in a silence that was no longer empty, but was now, somehow, companionable. The visual shows him sitting at a small wooden table in the kitchen. The only light comes from the fire in the hearth and a single candle. They do not look at each other, but the space between them is comfortable. The scene is one of profound, wordless peace. The garden of muted hues, the visual transitions to a stunning, walled garden within the library grounds. It is a riot of colored deep red roses, purple lavender, blue delphiniums, and golden lilies. But the colors seem almost unnaturally vibrant, and the scene is perfectly, eerily still. No bees buzz, no butterflies flutter, no leaves rustle. In the days that followed, Luna discovered the library's hidden heart. Its garden. It was a walled sanctuary, accessible through a low, arched door that Elian unlocked for her one afternoon, handing her the heavy iron key with a gesture that seemed to say, "This too is yours." She stepped out into a vision from a dream. The garden was laid out in a formal, geometric pattern, with boxwood hedges defining neat beds, overflowing with flowers. A gravel path, its stones pure white, wound through the center, leading to a stone bench beneath a pergola heavy with climbing roses. But like the library itself, the garden was under a spell of stillness. The colors were so intense, they almost hurt to look at. The red of the roses was a velvety, profound crimson she had never seen in nature. The blue of the cornflowers was the color of a deep summer sky. The white of the lilies was so pure it seemed to glow with its own light. But there was no movement. The flowers did not sway in a breeze that wasn't there. Their perfume hung in the air, thick and heavy, a single, unchanging note of fragrance. Luna walked the path slowly, her feet making no sound on the soft moss that edged the gravel. She reached out and touched the petal of a rose. It was cool and soft as silk, but it felt static, like a painting. She looked for insects stay busy and the lumbering bumblebees that should have been feasting on this bounty, but there were none. The garden was a masterpiece of form and color, but it had no life. It was a portrait of a garden, beautiful and dead. She understood then the full nature of Elian's curse. It wasn't just sound that had been stolen. It was vibration. It was the very energy of life itself. The library was a museum of perfect, silent things, and he was its chief exhibit. She found herself drawn to the garden daily. It became her place of contemplation after hours of focused work. She would sit on the stone bench and simply breathe in the silent, perfumed air. She began to notice the small, perfect details she would have missed in a living, buzzing garden. The intricate pattern of veins on a leaf the way morning dew beaded. On a spider web, though no spider was in sight. The perfect spiral unfurling of a fern. One day, she brought her sketchbook. She found that trying to capture the impossible vibrancy of the flowers on paper was a delightful challenge. She sat for hours, her charcoal pencil whispering silently across the page, capturing the curve of a petal, the complex heart of a peony. Eliane began to join her. He would sit at the far end of the bench, a book open on his lap. Though she noticed he rarely turned the page, he seemed to simply be present, sharing the space, sharing the silence. Their communication had developed into a sophisticated language of gestures and expressions. A raised eyebrow could be a question, a tilt of the head, an invitation, a slight smile, an approval. Luna would point to a flower she was drawing, and Eliane would go to the library and return with a heavy botanical tome open to an illustration of the same flower showing its medicinal or symbolic properties from a century past. In this way, amidst the silent, glorious blooms, they began to build a friendship. It was a friendship built not on shared stories or confidences, but on shared presence, on a mutual appreciation for the beauty of a still moment. Luna, who had always felt slightly out of step with the noisy rhythm of the world, had found her tempo. It was adagio. It was largo. It was the slow, measured beat of a heart at rest in a silent, beautiful prison. And for now, that was enough. The visual shows Luna sketching on her bench, with Eliane sitting a respectful distance away, watching the garden. The scene is dappled in soft, golden light. It is a picture of melancholy beauty. A system of gestures, the visual is a montage of small, silent moments between Luna and Eliane. Luna points to a high shelf. Eliane brings the ladder. Eliane shows Luna a crumbling book. Luna nods and takes it to her table. They share a meal, passing a loaf of bread without a word. The communication is fluid, intuitive, and peaceful. As the moon cycled in the sky outside the silent library, the wordless language between Luna and Eliane grew richer and more complex. It was a dance of intention, a ballet of quiet understanding that was, in its own way, more eloquent than speech. Their days fell into a gentle, predictable rhythm, a liturgy of silence. Luna would rise from her bed in the small, comfortable chamber Eliane had given her a room with a window looking out onto the motionless garden. She would find a simple breakfast of bread, cheese, and dried fruit waiting for her in the kitchen. Eliane, she learned, was an early riser, often already deep in his studies by the time she emerged. She would go to her work table, and he would have already left a stack of books for her attention. He had an uncanny sense of what needed mending. He would place a small, smooth, gray stone on top of any volume that required particularly delicate care. A book with a broken spine would be left open to the damaged page. A text with loose illustrations would have a single, pure white silk ribbon marking the place. These small, thoughtful preparations were his way of speaking to her, of guiding her work without a single command. Luna, in turn, developed her own methods of reply. When she finished a repair, she would leave the book on a specific corner of his large desk. If she needed a specific tool or material, she didn't have a particular color of thread, a piece of leather for a new binding. She would draw a simple picture of it on a scrap of parchment and leave it where he would see it. The next day, the item would be there, as if by magic. She knew Gabriel, the boy from the village, must be their connection to the outside world. A silent courier who bridged the gap between the soundless library and the Whispering Valley. Their mealtimes were the most structured part of their silent communication. They always ate together. Eliane would catch her eye and gesture towards the kitchen. Luna would nod, and they would prepare the food side by side. He would chop vegetables with a swift, precise skill. She would tend to the stew pot over the fire. They moved around each other in the small space with an easy, practiced grace, never bumping, never getting in each other's way. It was a partnership. At the table, their conversation was one of expressions. A raised glass was a toast to the day's work. A slight frown from Luna over a particularly tough piece of bread would be met with a sympathetic shrug from Eliane. She tried a new herb in the stew. She would watch his face carefully for a reaction. A slow, appreciative blink was high praise. A thoughtful tilt of the head meant it was interesting, but perhaps not to be repeated. One evening, Luna was working on a complex repera book of ancient songs, its musical notation hand-painted in brilliant blues and reds. The binding was a disaster, and she had to take it entirely apart. It was frustrating work, and she felt her shoulders growing tense. She must have sighed, or her posture must have conveyed her frustration, because she felt a presence behind her. Seturneth. Alian was standing there, holding 2 cups of a steaming herbal tea she had come to love. He placed one beside her on the table. Then, he did something he had never done before. He reached out and very gently, with the very tips of his fingers, touched her shoulder. It was a brief, fleeting contact, lighter than a butterfly's wing. But in that touch, she felt a world of meaning. It said, "I see you. I understand. It is difficult. You are not alone." A warmth spread from that point of contact, dissolving the tension in her neck and back. She looked up at him, and for the first time, she gave him a full, unguarded, genuine smile. It was a smile that reached her eyes, crinkling the corners. It was a smile of pure, uncomplicated gratitude. And for the first time since she had arrived, Eliane smiled back. It was a small, hesitant thing, a little rusty from disuse, but it was real. It transformed his entire face, lighting his twilight eyes from within and banishing. For a glorious moment, the ghost of loneliness that haunted them. No words were spoken. None were needed. In the silent library, a simply touch and a shared smile were a conversation more profound than any they could have had with words. The wall of silence was still there, but they were building a beautiful, wordless world together inside of it. The montage ends on the image of them sharing that smile, a moment of deep, silent connection in the soft light of the library. The constellation atlas, the visual shifts to the library at night. Eliane leads Luna to a special, circular room at the very top of the library. In the center is a strange, beautiful device, a brass armillary sphere, intricate and complex. He places a large, flat book on a pedestal in the center of the room. There was one room in the library that Eliane had not yet shown her. It was at the top of a spiraling staircase, tucked away under the highest point of the domed roof. Luna had often glanced at its locked door, wondering what secrets it held. One clear, crisp night, Elian beckoned to her after their evening meal. In his hand, he held a large, iron key, unlike any of the others. He led her up the winding stairs, the silence making their ascent feel like a dream. At the top, he unlocked the door and pushed it open. Luna stepped inside and gasped, her breath a silent puff of wonder. It was the observatory. The ceiling was a perfect dome. But it was not made of stone or wood. It was made of a single, vast piece of polished, jet-black obsidian, so smooth and flawless that it acted as a perfect mirror. But it was what stood in the center of the room that captured her attention. It was a complex structure of brass rings and arcs, an armillary sphere, engraved with fine lines and celestial symbols, and on a stone pedestal, before it lay a massive book. Its cover made of what looked like midnight blue velvet, inlaid with silver stars. Eliane went to the book and opened it. The pages were not paper, but seemed to be made of a thin, dark, translucent material. As he turned the pages, Luna saw that they were map star charts of incredible detail. He found the page he was looking for, a chart for the current night sky. Then, he looked up at her and gestured for her to come closer. He placed his hands on two of the brass rings of the sphere and began to turn them with a practiced ease. The mechanism moved without a sound, the polished metal glinting in the soft light of the single candle he had brought. He aligned the rings to match the positions on the chart. Then, he closed his eyes and placed his palms flat on the open page of the book. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a single point of light appeared on the black, mirrored ceiling. It was the bright, steady light of a star. Then another appeared, and another. Soon, the entire ceiling was ablaze with the constellations of the autumn night. It was not a dim projection. It was as if the roof had vanished, and they were standing under the true, open sky. The Milky Way stretched across the dome in a river of diamond dust, The stars twinkled with a cold, clean fire. It was the most breathtakingly beautiful thing Luna had ever seen. She looked at Elian, her eyes wide with awe. He was looking up at the starry ceiling, and his face was bathed in their cool, blue-white light. In that light, he did not look like a cursed librarian. He looked like a wizard, a king, a sage from a forgotten age. The deep sorrow in his eyes was still there, but it was now mingled with a profound and ancient wonder. He pointed upwards, to a specific constellation, a graceful curve of stars that resembled a swan in flight Cygnus. Then he pointed to a page in the book, where a story was written in elegant script beside the star chart. It was a myth about the swan, a tale of love and loss and transformation. Luna understood. This was his gift to her. This was how he shared stories. Not with his voice, but with the very heavens themselves. They spent hours there that night. He would show her a constellation, the mighty Hercules, the vain Cassiopeia, the bear guardians of the north, Ursa Major, and Minoran then show her the myth associated with it in the constellation atlas. She would read the stories silently, absorbing the tales of gods and heroes, monsters and maidens, all written in the stars. It was a library that encompassed the entire cosmos. In that room, under the artificial, but no less magical sky, the silence felt different. It was no longer an absence, but a canvas. The stars were the stories. Their light was the language, and as they stood there together, a librarian and a restorer, bathed in starlight, the immense, cosmic quiet felt not lonely, but holy. They were tiny specks in a vast universe, but in that moment, they were sharing its grandeur. They were, together, reading the oldest book in existence, and they did not need a single sound to understand its poetry. The visual is a slow, rotating shot of the two of them in the observatory. The starry ceiling swirling above them. Their faces are upturned, peaceful and full of wonder. The scene is one of absolute magic and peace. A flicker of sound, the visual returns to Luna's work table. She is meticulously rebacking a large, heavy liturgical book. The work is repetitive and requires intense concentration. She's applying a layer of adhesive with a brush, her movements slow and precise. The memory of the starlit observatory stayed with Luna, a warm glow in the heart of the silence. Her work continued. Day after peaceful day, she had moved on to a collection of large, heavy liturgical books, their wooden boards covered in scarred leather, their metal corners tarnished. The task was physically demanding, involving lifting the heavy texts, clamping them, and painstakingly rebuilding their spines. She was in the midst of this laborious process, applying a honey-colored adhesive to a strip of new linen that would form the backbone of a psalter. The glue was stubborn, and she had to work quickly before it set. Her world had narrowed to the brush in her hand, the sticky linen, and the alignment of the heavy ore. Book blocks. As she pressed the linen into place, smoothing it down with her bone folder, a tiny air bubble formed under the fabric. It was a common enough problem, but frustrating. Without thinking, driven by pure instinct and a flicker of annoyance, she did what she always did when a stubborn air bubble appeared. She leaned down close to the spine and hummed. It was a single, low, steady note. A worker's. A vibration she had learned from an old bookbinder she had apprenticed with, who swore that the right resonance could settle glue and smooth out parchment. It was a habit so deeply ingrained, she had forgotten she even did it. The note, a soft, left her lips and hung in the air. In the absolute, sound-devouring silence of the library, it was not a whisper. It was a cannonade. It was a shockwave. Luna froze, her eyes wide with horror. She had broken the silence. She had violated the sacred peace of this place. Her heart hammered in her chest, a frantic, pounding rhythm that she was sure must also be audible in the terrible quiet. She slowly, fearfully, turned her head. Elian was standing across the room, near a shelf of astrolabes and navigational charts. He had dropped the delicate brass instrument he was holding. It did not clatter on the floor. It simply landed on the thick rug with a silent, final thud. He was staring at her, his body rigid, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. His eyes were wide, his lips parted. He looked as if he had seen a ghost, or heard one. For a long, agonizing moment, they simply stared at each other across the silent room. Luna was terrified that she had destroyed the delicate, wordless friendship they had built, that he would be angry, that he would send her away. But then she saw it. In the depths of his wide, stunned eyes, behind the shock, there was something else. It wasn't anger. It was recognition. It was a spark of life, so long buried it was almost extinguished. It was the look of a man who has been walking in a desert for a lifetime, who has just felt a single, cool drop of rain on his parched skin. The moment stretched, thin and taut as a drumskin, and then it passed. Elian blinked, slowly. He looked down at the astrolabe on the floor, then back up at her. The stark shock on his face softened to something unreadable, a complex mixture of wonder, pain, and a dawning, fragile hope. He gave her a single, slow, deliberate nod. It was the same nod he had given her on her first day, but this time it was weighted with a universe of new meaning. He did not approach. He did not try to communicate anything further. He simply bent down, picked up the astrolabe, and turned back to the shelf. His movements once again slow and controlled, but Luna could see that his hands were trembling. She turned back to her work table, her own hands shaking. The air bubble was gone, smoothed out by her hum. The silence had returned, thick and heavy as ever, but everything had changed. The spell, for a single, fleeting second, had been challenged. A sound had been born in the library, and it had not been devoured. It had been heard, and the one who heard it was a man who had forgotten what it was to listen. The visual holds on Luna's face, a mixture of fear and dawning understanding. The scene is charged with a new, electric potential, all contained within the enduring silence. The weight of piece de visual shows the passing of time. We see the sun moving across the sky through the library windows. Luna is finishing her work on the last of the heavy liturgical books. She places it on the designated corner of Elian's desk with a final, satisfied pat. She looks tired, but content. The memory of the hum lingered in the days that followed, a ghost in the machine of their silent routine. But Elian did not treat her differently. If anything, he was more attentive, his silent gestures carrying a new layer of tenderness. It was as if the sound, instead of breaking their world, had somehow reinforced it, reminding them both of the fragile, miraculous nature of their connection. Luna had worked through the entire stack of books he had set aside for her. The final, massive psalter was now restored, its spines straight and strong, its clasps polished to a soft gleam. As she placed it on his desk, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had not just mended books. She had preserved stories, knowledge, beauty. She had left her mark on this silent place, a quiet legacy of care. A deep fatigue settled over her, not the weary kind from the outside world, but the satisfying tiredness that comes from a long and meaningful labor completed. It was a gentle, heavy feeling that seeped into her bones, making them feel like warm lead. The light outside the tall windows was softening into the deep gold of late afternoon. Elian was in his usual chair by the cold fireplace, a book open in his lap, though he was watching her. He saw the tired slump of her shoulders, the way she gently massaged her right hand, which ached from the detailed work. He stood and walked to her, his movement silent as always. He looked from her face to the finished book, and then back to her face. He placed a hand over his heart and gave a slow, deep bow. It was a gesture of the utmost respect, the kind a king might offer a visiting sovereign. "Thank you," it said. "Thank you for your gift. Thank you for your presence." Luna felt a blush rise to her cheeks. She bowed her head in return. He then gestured towards the most comfortable armchair in the library, a large, high-backed piece of furniture upholstered in worn, burgundy velvet, positioned to catch the last of the afternoon sun. It was clearly his chair, the place where he did his most serious reading. The invitation was clear. She was too tired to refuse. She nodded and walked over to the chair, sinking into its deep, welcoming embrace. It felt like being hugged by a cloud. The velvet was soft against her skin, and the chair seemed to mold itself to the contours of her body, supporting her in all the right places. Elian brought her a cup of the herbal tea she loved and a soft woolen blanket, which he draped over her legs. He then returned to his own chair, picked up his book, and began to read, or at least he pretended to. Luna sipped her tea, the warm, floral liquid soothing her from the inside out. She watched the sunbeams, thick with dancing dust motes, travel slowly across the floor. She could feel the weight of the day, the weight of the weeks of work, the weight of the profound peace of this place, all settling upon her. It was a benevolent weight, a comforting pressure that pushed all lingering thoughts from her mind. Her eyelids grew heavy. The book in Elian's hand became a blur. The soundless room seemed to hum with a vibration of its own, a deep, subaudible frequency of contentment. She was safe. She was valued. She was at home. She set her empty cup down on the small table beside the chair. She pulled the soft blanket up to her chin, nestling deeper into the velvet. She took one last look at Elian, whose profile was silhouetted against the window. He was not a beast. He was not a cursed wizard. He was just a man, a quiet, lonely man who had shared his world with her. And with that final, peaceful thought, Luna surrendered. Her breathing slowed, deepened, became regular and steady. The lines of concentration and gentle fatigue smoothed from her face. Her hands, which had been so busy for so long, lay still and open in her lap. She did not fight it. She did not wish for it. She simply allowed it to happen. Luna fell into a deep, dreamless, and profoundly peaceful sleep, right there in the heart of the silent library. The visual is a slow zoom in on Luna's face as she sleeps in the chair. The expression is one of utter peace and innocence. The setting sun casts a golden glow on the scene. All is still. All is silent. The rhythm of rest the visual remains on the scene in the library, but the perspective shifts to Elian. He is not reading. He is watching Luna sleep. The light continues to fade, casting the room in deep shadows and long blue tones. Elian felt the change before he understood what it was. He had been pretending to read, but his attention was entirely on Luna. He watched the gentle rise and fall of her shoulders as she breathed. He saw the moment her body went completely slack, the moment consciousness released its hold and she drifted into the realm of sleep. A protective tenderness swelled in his chest, so powerful it was almost a physical pain. He sat there for a long time, simply watching over her, a silent guardian in the twilight. The library was, as always, utterly soundless. The world outside the windows was a muted painting of deepening blues and purples. The only movement was the slow, almost imperceptible crawl of the stars beginning to appear in the square of the night sky. And then he heard it. It started as a sensation more than a sound, a faint, rhythmic disturbance in the absolute fabric of the silence. It was a soft, whispery sigh. Then, another. He frowned, his eyes fixed on Luna. He saw her chest rise and fall, and with the next exhalation, the sound came again. A little louder this time. A soft, steady sheet of air passing through her slightly parted lips. It was her breath. He was hearing her breathe. For a moment, his mind refused to process it. It had been so long. Decades. The silence had been so complete, so total, that his brain had forgotten how to interpret auditory signals. This was not a memory. This was happening. Now, he sat up straighter, his book forgotten in his lap. He leaned forward, straining every fiber of his being to listen. The sound was soft, but it was unmistakable. It was the rhythm of life, the rhythm of rest. A gentle inhalation. Out, a longer, softer exhalation. In and out, a slow, steady tide of sound in the soundless sea of his prison. Tears welled in his eyes, blurring his vision. He did not brush them away. He let them fall, tracing warm paths down his cheeks. He was not sad. He was being reborn. And as he listened, captivated by the simple, beautiful music of her sleeping breath, other sounds began to timidly announce themselves. A log in the kitchen hearth, long since burned to embers, settled with a faint, greedy crunch. The sound was tiny, but it was there. It was real. Then, from outside, a miracle. A night breeze, the first he had felt or heard in an age, found its way through a crack in a window frame. It was a soft, sighing breath of air, and it rustled the pages of an open book on a table near the window. The sound was like the stirring of autumn leaves. It was the most beautiful symphony he had ever heard. He cooled air. The spell was breaking, not with a shout, not with a clap of thunder, but with the gentle, trusting rhythm of a sleeping woman's breath. He looked at Luna, asleep in his chair, and he understood. The curse had not been broken by a grand gesture or a magical incantation. It had been broken by humanity. Be kindness. Be patience. Be the simple profound act of one person offering their quiet companionship to another. The scroll's warning had been right. To sever one's self from the song of the world is to sever the soul from its anchor. Luna had not just been restoring books. She had been restoring his connection to the song. Her presence had been the anchor that had pulled his soul back from the void. The silence was gone. In its place was a quiet filled with the gentle, comforting sounds of a world that was alive. A world he was once again a part of. Took a deep shuddering breath, feeling his own lungs fill with air. And then, tentatively, he spoke. His voice was a dry, rasping whisper, unused for so long it was almost unrecognizable even to himself. It was a single word, a name, spoken with a reverence that bordered on prayer. The visual is a close-up on Leon's face as he whispers her name. The tears are clear in his face, but his expression is one of awe and profound gratitude. The scene holds on this moment of miraculous return. A world transformed. The visual shows the library the next morning. Sunlight streams in, but now it feels different, warmer, more alive. We see Luna waking up in the chair, stretching. She looks around, and a faint, curious expression crosses her face. Something has changed. Luna awoke to sunlight. She stretched, her muscles stiff from a night spent in the chair, but her spirit felt refreshed, as if she had slept for 100 years. She blinked, looking around the library. Something was different. The air felt lighter. It no longer had that thick, heavy quality. It felt like normal air, and then she realized what it was. She could hear the faint rustle of her own clothing as she moved. She could hear the soft sound of her feet on the rug as she stood up. The silence had been replaced by a deep, peaceful quiet, the kind found in a forest at dawn, full of subtle living sounds. She turned and saw Leon. He was standing by the tall window, looking out at the garden. He must have heard her stir, for he turned to face her, and the look on his face made her breath catch in her throat. The deep, abiding sorrow that had lived in his eyes was gone. In its place was a calm, quiet joy, a peace that seemed to radiate from him. "Good morning, Luna," he said. His voice was soft, a little rough, but melodic. It was a beautiful voice. Luna stared, her hand flying to her mouth. She could hear him. She could hear his voice. The world tilted on its axis. You can speak," she whispered, her own voice sounding strange and small in the newly resonant air. "I can," he said, and a genuine, warm smile spread across his face. It transformed him, utterly. "And I can hear you. The curse. It is broken." He walked towards her, his steps now making soft, solid sounds on the stone floor. He told her everything about his arrogance, his foolish wish, the decades of utter silence, the warning on the scroll he had ignored. He told her how the sound of her humming had been the first crack, and how the sound of his sleeping breath had been the final key that unlocked his prison. The spell was not broken by noise, he explained, his voice filled with wonder. It was broken by the sound of trust, of peace. It was broken by your rest. Luna, you were not afraid of the silence. You did not fight it. You made a home within it, and in doing so, you made a home for me. They walked out into the garden together, and it, too, was transformed. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the boxwood hedges. Bees buzzed happily among the impossibly vibrant flowers, their hum a joyful song. Birds chirped from the top of the garden wall. The colors seemed just as bright, but now they were alive, dancing and swaying in the morning light. The portrait had become a living world. Luna laughed, a sound of pure, unburdened delight, and it echoed softly in the courtyard. Alian laughed with her, the sound foreign and wonderful to his own ears. They walked the paths, not in silence, but in easy conversation, their voices mingling with the sounds of the bees and the birds. The library was no longer a tomb. It was a home. It was filled with the quiet, comfortable sounds of life, the turning of a page, the crackle of a newly lit fire in the great hearth, the soft murmur of two voices sharing stories they had waited a lifetime to tell. Elian was free, and Luna had found not just a place to work, but a place to belong. The Starlight Librarian and the Restorer of Worlds. They had healed each other, not with grand magic, but with the simplest, most powerful magic of all, quiet companionship and a peaceful heart. The visual is a beautiful, sweeping shot of them walking and talking in the now living garden surrounded by color and sound and life. The feeling is one of joyous completion. Returning to your own peace, the visual gently dissolves from the sunny garden back to the slow, starry night sky from the beginning. The music remains soft and constant. And so, in the heart of the Valley of Stillness, a new song began, a gentle melody woven from the rhythm of breath, the turning of pages, and the soft cadence of shared words. The library was awake, and its heart beat in time with the world once more. But now, dear listener, it is time to leave that valley behind. It is time to bring your awareness back to this room, to this night, to your own breath. The story is over, but the feeling of peace it carried remains. Let it settle around you now, like a soft, woolen blanket. Feel the weight of your body, still heavy and relaxed against your bed. Notice the gentle, steady rhythm of your own breathing, in and out. That is your song. That is the sound of your life, peaceful and calm in the darkness. The Starlight Librarian found his rest in the sound of another's sleep. And you, too, can find your rest in the simple, steady rhythm of your own being. There is no need to search for it. It is already here, in the rise and fall of your chest, in the quiet beat of your heart. Let go of the story now. Let the images of the library and the garden gently fade, like pleasant dreams dissolving into the depths of the night. There is nothing to hold on to, nothing to remember. Only this moment, this breath, this perfect, peaceful darkness. You are safe. You are warm. You are deeply, profoundly restful. Allow your breathing to be soft and easy. Allow your body to sink even deeper into the mattress, releasing the very last remnants of the day. From the tips of your toes to the top of your head, you are immersed in a sea of calm. The night is deep, and sleep is near. It is creeping towards you on silent paws, drawn by the quiet music of your rest. Do not try to reach for it. Simply continue to breathe, and let it find you. I will leave you now with this quiet, and with my very best wishes for your dreams. Good night. Sleep well. The screen is black. After a moment of silence, the soft, ambient music from the intro begins to fade back in, very quietly. The visual remains black, or a single, dim star can be seen in the center of the screen. And so, we leave the library and the garden to their peaceful slumber, and we return to the quiet of your own room. The story is over now, but the feeling of calm can remain with you. Let it settle deep within your bones, a gentle, heavy peace. Bring your awareness back to the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. In and out. The steady, soothing tide of your body at rest. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress. The softness of the sheets. The perfect comfort of your bed. There is nowhere you need to go. Nothing you need to do. You are safe. You are warm. You are deeply, profoundly restful. Let go of any remaining thoughts, any last traces of the day. Surrender to this feeling of heaviness and peace. Sleep is near now, waiting to welcome you. Simply breathe and let it find you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey to sleep tonight. Good night. Sleep deeply and peacefully.